Hey guys, Joe Madden here of the Joe Madden Sports Podcast, joined by Michael KB at Twitter at the real Mike KB, sports writer for CBS Sports in the NBA. Michael, how's the day going?
What's up, Joe? It's going well. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. Excited to hear your journey into this industry as well as talk these NBA finals with you. Let's start off by hearing, how did you get into the industry? Where'd the passion for the NBA and sports come from?
That's a great question, Joe. And I think it's a story that a lot of other people have. Growing up, I loved playing basketball. It was my favorite sport to play. And when you're young and naive, you always think like, hey, maybe I can continue this and one day make it to the NBA. But then when I was on my high school basketball team, didn't play too much, played like a little bit, and it started to become clear that I probably wasn't going to make it to the NBA as a player. So it kind of shifted the focus and went on to college and studied, journalism and communications and, really with concentration on sports and specifically basketball. Then once I got out of college, I started writing a little bit for myself, for some basketball blogs, smaller things like that, and slowly kind of just started to build up a name and, get credentialed for some games here, for some teams here, things like that. And then, I started working at the Philadelphia Inquirer, the main newspaper in Philadelphia, for a couple of years to cover the Sixers. And from there, it's pretty much just continued on. I started working with CBS in 2016 as a full-time NBA writer covering the Sixers since I'm in Philadelphia, but the NBA as a whole too. And it's been great ever since. It's my passion. I love basketball and specifically the NBA. So it's pretty much a dream job for me.
Oh, I love hearing that you are doing something that you're so passionate about, Michael. It's definitely the key to success in this industry as well. Okay, we had some crazy games yesterday. What were your thoughts? Did you expect those outcomes?
Not at all, Joe. I was shocked by both. I actually thought this year we'd end up seeing a rematch of last year's NBA Finals, which was obviously the Bucks and the Suns. And yesterday completely flipped that on its head as both of those teams lost in a Game 7. I thought the Suns' loss was much more shocking and surprising to me, specifically with the way they played. Obviously, the Bucks were without Chris Middleton, their second best player, against a really tough and deep Celtics team. So although I expected them to win, that outcome wasn't quite as shocking to me. The Suns won, especially with the way they played, being down by 40, being outscored almost by Luka Doncic single-handedly in the first half, and just playing with a lack of passion and enthusiasm in a Game 7 was really shocking to me. And I think a lot of people across the sports landscape, I'm sure feel the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. It was like everyone was writing off the Mavericks in this series, expecting the Suns to just dominate. I could not believe they were only able to get 90 points on the Mavericks yesterday. It was a crazy game. I don't think they saw themselves headed home either.
Nah, definitely not, especially after the run they had last year. And you have a guy like Chris Paul that's such a respected veteran. I think you usually expect a guy like that to give a team a boost in a Game 7, which to me is part of the reason it was so shocking that he just, I don't know if it was injury, maybe the season had just caught up to him at the age he has at the point in his career now. But he was just, he just didn't seem to have the energy and the motivation and the passion that he usually plays with. And, when he kind of came out flat, I think a lot of the times the team follows their leader. And, that just seemed to be the case yesterday. The Mavericks looked hungrier. They had the best player in the series in Luka. And, they shocked the basketball world.
Yep. Absolutely. So the West Finals, we'll see the Dallas Mavericks and the Golden State Warriors facing off. Now, this starts off on Wednesday. Golden State now a favorite by 5 points, total 214.5 in this one. Any early thoughts on this series?
Well, it's tough. I didn't think the Mavericks would get past the Suns. And again, I'm going to go against them in this series. I think the Warriors should be able to take care of business given their experience and the talent and the depth that they have on that team. The one thing that the Mavs have going for them, obviously, is Luka Doncic, who's a matchup nightmare for anyone. There's no one on the Warriors that, you could say, hey, this guy will do a great job of slowing him down, especially with Gary Payton, too, injured still from that last series against the Grizzlies. But ultimately, when you're talking about, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, the rest of the depth of the Warriors and the experience that they have and how, excited they seem to be back on the big stage in the NBA playoffs after a couple of years off due to, various injury issues and ailments to their guys. I think the Warriors are going to end up pulling it out. But it could be a series that goes 6 or potentially even 7 games for sure.
Yeah, I can definitely see this being a battle. What do you think we need to see out of the Warriors for them to take this series?
I think there are two main things. I think we need to see them take better care of the ball and value possessions more. I think that's been kind of an Achilles heel from them throughout their run with Steph Curry and Clay and Draymond, is sometimes they're just really careless on the offensive end. They don't value the ball, don't value possessions. I think we saw that hurt them several times in that Grizzlies series and gave the Grizzlies a couple of games that they might not have otherwise won. And then I think, they just have to knock down their shots. Obviously, Steph Curry and Klay Thompson are two of the best shooters of all time, but they can, they have games where they're not on, where they're a little bit off. And when that's the case, the Warriors become, pretty beatable in a game like that. So to me, as long as they take care of the ball and don't turn it over and they're able to, knock down the shots at a reasonable rate, I think they should be able to take care of business.
Nice. I like it. Now in the East Finals, we have the Miami Heat facing the Boston Celtics. This one kicks off tomorrow. Heat coming in as a favorite for tomorrow's game at -1.5 here. Total is low at 204, but we saw the Heat in all of their games keep opponents to low-scoring games. Any thoughts on this series? Who do you want to see come out of it?
Well, you just hit a one thing for me. I think a lot of, from a betting perspective in this game, I'd be going on the unders for a lot of the over-unders. I think this is going to be a really, a defensive battle. Two teams that are really sound defensively, that are versatile, can switch really easily on the perimeter and have a lot of depth. So first of all, I think it's going to be a defensive battle and probably a little bit more low scoring than, especially the Warriors Mavs series. But I like the Celtics in this series to come out, and I don't think it's going to take much more than 5 or 6 games. I just think they're a deeper, more talented team than the Heat, and I think the Heat, they had to play the Hawks, they had to play a Sixers team that was missing Joel Embiid for 2 games, and they still lost 2 games in that series. I think the Celtics had a tougher route, having to beat the Nets and Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving in the first round, and then go through the defending champs and arguably the best player in the planet right now in Giannis Antetokounmpo last round. I think the Heat, compared to that with Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, is almost a step back in terms of the offensive firepower on the other side of the floor. So I think the Celtics will be able to come through. I'm sure Miami will win a game, possibly 2. They're, a great, well-coached team, but I'm going the Celtics all the way in this series.
Are you concerned at all, too, with the Miami Heat's time off they've had since their last game they've played? They come into this one rested, but there's something about that momentum coming off for the Celtics over that Bucks win.
Yeah, absolutely. You nailed it. It's funny in the playoffs, some teams react completely differently when, if you take care of business and get that extra time off. For some teams, it's almost like a great thing where they get a little extra rest if they're a little banged up. And then other teams, like you said, they could have some momentum, and then not playing for a week or several days kind of takes that back. With a team like the Heat, I'm not as worried about it. I think they might have needed the rest. Their guys were a little bit banged up. Kyle Lowry missed several games in that Sixers series. Jimmy Butler's been, battling with some injury issues, and they're so well coached. And so, the Heat culture that they have down there in Miami, I think that's going to really kind of help them stay focused. Whereas for some other teams, it might be more of an issue, but I think the Heat will be ready to go when game 1 rolls around.
Okay, well, I'm excited for these NBA playoffs to kick off in the next round here. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. Michael, again, let's hear where everyone can find you and what you're up to so that people can get following you.
Yeah, well, the main place to follow me is at Twitter, at The Real Mike KB. Like you said on the lead-in, I post pretty much all of my articles there. I have a link to my CBS Sports writer page in the profile there that has a link to all my latest articles. I'll be continuing to cover the rest of the season, the conference finals and the NBA finals. And then there's really no off season in the NBA. It goes right into the draft and into free agency. So, if you're interested in the NBA, basketball, betting, anything like that, I'll be talking hoops nonstop over there. So that's the best place to find me for sure.
Well, you definitely are excellent at writing those articles. So everyone, make sure you go check out Michael KB at The Real Mike KB on Twitter. Are you on other social media platforms as well, Michael?
I'm on Instagram at Michael KB and just Twitter, just those 2.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and discussing these. All the best to you and everything that you have going on. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Joe. Today. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed talking to you.
Okay, awesome. We'll have to do it again, Michael. Thank you.
For sure. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you back here later.